Om Tadparam Paryaya Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruh Prachodayate Om Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Gitananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Namaste, Namaskaram, Swagatam, Vanakkam, Good morning, Salamat Pagi, Ayubovan, Bonjour, Buongiorno, Buonasera, Buonanotte, Huy Amore, Boreda, Kia ora, Shubh Dinam, Suprabhat. A pleasure to be with you again on our Saturday morning, continuing from last week's discussion on the Prana Vayus. Last week we had taken a look at the 5 principal energies that enable us to manifest as a human being, and the energies that are enabling the psychophysiological functioning through the processes of respiration, elimination, digestion, circulation, and communication. Hridi prano gude apana samana nabi mandale udana kanta deshasto bhyana sarva shariragaha. And that these are having their headquarters, their primary root in different parts of the body and then spreading throughout the body. And as we saw, right down into our cellular, subcellular level. You find an expanded concept of this in what is called the Dasha Vayu or Dasha Prana. Dasha means 10. Like Dasharatha, the father of Lord Rama, Dashavatara, the 10 incarnations of Lord Mahavishnu. Dasha as 10. So when normally they talk about these pranas or the vayus, vayu as the wind is a visible manifestation of prana. Because prana is subtle, very subtle. So it is said that through the vayu, you can actually witness the prana, and through witnessing the prana, you witness the Brahman itself. There's a very beautiful verse that talks about it, where we chant, Om Shanno Mitra Shan Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnu Kramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayu. Namo Brahmane, that Brahman, Namaste Vayu, Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. You are the manifestation. You are the manifestation. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. Pratyaksha, I can directly perceive Brahman through you, O Vayu. Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayu Tvameva Pratyaksham. Tvam eva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami. That is the expression of the Brahman. So the Vayu is the manifestation of the prana, which is the manifestation of the Brahman itself. Hridam Vadishyami. That which is in tune with the cosmos. That which is in tune with the heart, which is the rhythm of the cosmos. Hridagum Satyam. Hridam. That Hridam is the rhythm of the universe. Hridam Vadishyami, Satyam Vadishyami. And then we ask for the protection. You know, when we talk about the prana and the vayu, what we are talking here is, because there was a question last week. Why is it called a vayu? Because the vayu is the visible manifestation of the flow of the prana, and the prana is the energy manifestation of the transcendental Brahman. So I hope that gives you that explanation. These 5 pranas, which are the main ones, the prana vayus or the pancha prana, the 5 is dynamism. So they keep us as a dynamic human being. They are then added to another 5, which are called the Upa Prana. Upa means subsidiary, accessory, additional, deputy. Mukhya Mantri, Upa Mukhya Mantri we say. We even had an Upa Pradhan Mantri, a deputy prime minister at one time also, in coalition governments. In the body is like a coalition government, you have to adjust and give and take a bit, so a lot of Upa is required. Upa Prana. So you have the pranas or the prana vayus. Why Vayu? Because it is the manifest flow. We are seeing the manifestation because of the Vayu, which is the manifestation of the prana, which is the manifestation of the Brahman. Now you have the Upa Pranas, which are the additional. They are the assistants, the deputies. And these 5 are primarily our reflexes that keep us alive. So you have the 5 pranas that are physiological functioning energies, and you have the 5 which are now going to be seen as reflexes that support us to stay alive. And where do all the reflexes come from? Basically your lower part of the brain, the reptilian part of your brain. The reptilian part of your brain, which is the oldest part of your brain, the spinal cord and brain stem. And this is where all your reflexes are. You have your spinal reflexes, ankle jerk, knee jerk. You can do, at the wrist, you can do at the elbow. You can do at the cornea also, the corneal. All these reflexes you have, which are tested in neurophysiology, all of these reflexes are based on the spinal cord and the brain stem. And that is the oldest part of our nervous system. The most primitive part, paleo. And that is the part which is considered the reptilian complex. We have a reptilian complex, a mammalian complex, and the human complex in our nervous system. The reptilian is the most old part of the nervous system. The spinal cord is the oldest, then comes the brain stem, then comes the inner parts of the brain, and then comes the cortex. So the inner parts of the brain are the mammalian part. This is where there is all the feeling and the emotions. Your limbic system that drives all of us into messes all the time. From one mess to another, we sort of just trudge from one mess to another because of hyper-emotionality. This is all the mammalian complex, which is the middle part of the brain, in the center of the brain. And then you have the outer cortex, the covering of the brain. This covering of the brain is where the human part comes in. It's called the human cortex, the neocortex, where the capacity for rationality, common sense starts to come in. Now we are talking of the reflexes, reptilian reflexes. So it is not a coincidence that 3 of the first of the 5 Upapranas are reptilian in nature. Naga. Naga means a serpent. Nagadi. This is why these 5 are called Nagadi Prana Vayus. Naga Adi. Naga etc. Et al. When we do scientific writing, you have the first author et al. Naga et al. Nagadi it is called. Whereas the other 5 are called Pranadi. Prana Adi. Prana et al. Pranadi Vayu, and these are the Nagadi Vayu. Naga, which means a serpent. It is a serpentine energy. So the metaphor here is that this is a protective energy which is of a serpentine manifestation. And it is related to the upper part of your digestive tract. So whenever you eat something that is not good for you, something which is old, stale, or something that your body doesn't like, immediately you feel like throwing up. there's a belch, there's a burp, there's a throwing up. It is an energy that, like a serpent, just suddenly rises up. The serpent goes zoom. Aadu Bambe, Vilayadu Bambe. So the serpent is going Aadu Bambe, Vilayadu Bambe. That type of sudden rise. So the Naga is the energy that a sudden rise is there and just. And what it does is protects you. It is one of the protective reflexes of the eructation. Belching, burping, vomiting, eructation, and get it out so that you don't take into your system that which may harm you. The swallowing reflex, and all of this comes into this. The second one, kurma. Again a reptile, tortoise. Kurma is related to your eyes. It is related to the opening and closing of your eyes. All of that blinking and winking, all that type of stuff. That is the kurma. And it is also related to your pupillary dilatation and constriction. Your pupils, they dilate and they constrict because there are muscle groups in the iris which are concentric and longitudinal. So when the concentric ones constrict, your pupil constricts. When the longitudinal ones pull, it dilates. So the dilatation and the constriction of your pupil, the pupillary reflexes. Pupillary reflexes are a very important part of emergency room procedures. When a patient comes in with suspected head injury and you want to evaluate them, one of the first things you do is evaluate the pupils. The pupillary reflex, because if your pupils are not reactive, that is one of the worst things you can find. Pupillary reflexes are not reactive. Pupils non-reactive, if they say, it means your brain stem has shut down, you are brain dead. So when we talk about people being brain dead, this is one of the most important reflexes that tells us you are brain dead. And it is related to the brain stem. Remember, what is the brain stem? It is your abhinivesha, klesha, survival instinct. It is part of the reptilian. And so kurma is a very important functioning manifestation of staying alive. And the capacity to survive at any cost is related to this. I'll come back to this in a few moments. So Naga is the upper GIT and the protective reflex. This is the pupillary dilatation, and there is what is called adaptation to light. When you go into a dark room, your pupils dilate so you can see better. Like the wolf and Red Riding Hood. My eyes are wide so I can see you better. Your pupils actually go wide in the dark so that you can see better, more light can come in. When you come out into the bright sunshine, too much of light is going in, so the pupils constrict. Constriction in light, dilatation in dark. Dilatation dark, D for D. And this is very much part of your reflex and adjustability, adaptability to the surrounding light. This is related to your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system also. So it is part of the autonomic balance. So your pupils dilating and constricting properly are a sign of good autonomic balance, which is what yoga is all about. Naga, Kurma, Krikala. Krikala is classically said to be a lizard, a gecko. Gecko? Yeah. A gecko, a lizard. And this is basically your upper respiratory tract. The upper respiratory tract and its reflexes of sneezing. So whenever something gets into your nose, just as if something gets into your mouth and you throw it out, is Naga, protection. Getting into your nose, your airway passages, you sneeze it out. That protective reflex is what Krikala is about. And often they say, when you sneeze, a lot of mucus comes out which is sticky. Just like the gecko and the lizard, they stick to the wall. This is another way to remember these things. There are other versions which talk about it as Krikara, and Krikara as a partridge, a type of bird. But usually Krikala is the common one. So Naga, Kurma, Krikala. Sneezing, the sneezing reflex. Now I must tell you one thing. In modern times, in the name of being socially cultured, we try to suppress these reflexes. We suppress the reflexes because we think it is not good company to be burping and belching and, winking and, sneezing all the time in company, in good company. And so what we start to do is we start to take stuff to dampen our reflexes. We start to dampen our reflexes. And again, the light-dark adaptation because of all the artificial light. At night, if you're looking at your mobile phone, that light that comes out of that and our computer screens, well, our reflexes get very confused. Is it dark or light? This is a big confusion that is coming on. So what happens is that these reflexes are supposed to function properly so that you are kept safe. But what do? We suppress them. And in suppressing them, we are suppressing what amazing aspects are being suppressed. And then we start to dampen all these things that are part of our protective mechanisms in the name of good company. Well, maybe that's why the yogis said, find a place far away from human habitat, stay away from crowds, live by the waters, have a cave with free Wi-Fi. Cave with free Wi-Fi next to a nice river, and away from human habitat. Because you know what? You want these reflexes to be working so that you are healthy, because it's part of you. It's part of you. Your sneezing is an important part of you. Now, when you suppress it by taking antihistamines, what you are doing is you are suppressing your own natural functioning. And so the functioning which should be at the normal level, which should be at the level of sama. When we talk about Agni, etc., we talk Sama Agni. And then we say when the Agni is lower, we say it's Manda Agni. Manda means functioning lower than normal. And then Tishna. So Sama Agni, Manda Agni, and Tikshna Agni. When it is over functioning, the same concept we find when we use the word Atijiranam, Ajiranam. It should be Samajiranam. Sama is balance. Your reflexes should be in a state of balanced functioning. Of course, hyper-functioning reflexes means again something is wrong. Where the Vata issues come in, the hyper-functioning of the Vata. Because remember, Vata is related to wind, is related to Vayu, is related to Prana. And this is why it is so important that we respect these reflexes that are an integral part of who we are. Same thing with sweating. Sweating should be allowed. What do? We put all these deodorants to suppress the sweating. We block the skin pores. And then all that which should be eliminated and excreted goes into our system. And as Swamiji says, you are not sick, you are toxic. You are not sick, you are toxic. That is how Swamiji used to define it. We are not letting the toxins go out, and we are toxic because of all the toxins stagnating in us. Naga, Kurma, Krikala. Now comes the next two, which are very interesting. Devadatta. Devadatta. Devadatta, if you look at that term, Deva means the divine. The divine. Deva Deva Kalayami Te Charanambuja Sevanam. Deva Deva Kalayami Te Charanambujam Sevanam. Deva Deva. Devas, the divine, the energies. The divine energies. Deva. Datta. Datta means a blessing. A blessing, Datta means to be manifest. And this is why there is a concept that Datta can also mean a progeny, a son. a child. And recently I was blessed to listen to an old video of Sant Sadguru Keshav Das Maharaj, in which so beautifully he talked about Dattatraya. The three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, come as a foster son. They come as a foster son for the great Rishi Atri and his wife Anusuya. Atri and Anusuya have a foster son who is a manifestation of the three gods. And he comes as a foster son, Dattatraya. Dattatraya. It is beautiful to understand that context. Normally, Datta means a manifestation, an embodiment. So, Deva Datta is the embodiment of the divine energies. And you say, wow, that sounds great. It must be something great. And you know what it is? Yawning. The embodiment of being divine is to yawn. The yawning reflex. And thousands of papers and thousands of hypotheses have been put up for why do human beings yawn. Well, I have seen some animals also yawn. It is said to be a social bonding. So the yawning reflex is a social bonding reflex. That is why when one person in a group starts yawning, everybody starts to yawning. Yawning is contagious. Yawning is contagious because it is a sign of social bonding. And what is it that the yawning manifests? The yawning is manifesting the fact that we are all connected to each other. Because we are connected to each other, we are safe because we are in a group. We are a team. Survival, team, group, herd. You have heard of herd immunity. When we start to have that herd immunity, when we start to develop that connectivity with each other, social health, social bonding, social relationships. Social relationships are embodied in the fact that when one person yawns, the others yawn. Now this is said to develop about around the age of 1.5 to 2 years when the child is at that age. And this is because the child, for the first 2 years of life, the whole nervous system is getting developed. And so as the nervous system is getting developed, it cannot yawn initially. That's why a newborn baby doesn't yawn. Yawns, but doesn't yawn in response to your yawning. And I remember when Divya was born, for the first year or so, I kept on going in front of her and yawning and seeing whether she would respond with a yawn. Because I was testing out this new knowledge I had at that time. And she never yawned. And then suddenly there was a point where she started yawning back. There's a point where suddenly you have developed that interconnectivity with the other person. And so when they yawn, you yawn. It is a sympathetic response to them. It is empathetic response, a sympathetic, empathetic response to another fellow human being. This is one aspect of it. Initially, they used to say, well, when your brain doesn't get enough oxygen, you yawn to get more oxygen. You're really not going to get much more oxygen by yawning. Okay. You're not going to get oxygen by yawning. You need a good deep breath for that to manifest. Just 1 second. There's an interesting ray of light coming through here today. Where's the light coming? Someplace here. Okay. I'm getting a very, very interesting light there. That is an interesting ray of light shining through. Yawning is not just, you need more oxygen. What actually it symbolizes is that you are tired. It is symbolizing that you need rest. Because rest is where healing occurs. But what do we do when we are not well? We push ourselves even more and we become even more sicker. We become worse off. The yawning is saying that you are tired. You are tired. You need rest. Take a step back. Relax a bit. Relax a bit. Rest a bit. Heal yourself. The idea is to heal. You want to heal. And to heal, you have to rest. And so the yawning is telling you, it is a warning against survival at another light, another level. It is saying you need to rest in order to be the best you. You are burning yourself out. You are in the danger of burning yourself out by burning both ends of the candle. So it is saying, the yawning is saying, you need to be protected. It is a message of the divine. Devadatta. The message of the divine saying, oh human being, don't punish yourself so much. You need to rest a bit. And so you start to yawn. What a beautiful message from the divine. Huh? You can rest, it will be okay. All you need to do is rest. If you rest, you will be fine. Rest, recuperate, relax. Rest and digest is your parasympathetic nervous system. That polyvagal aspects of the vagus. This light is really decided to shine on me today. Where is it coming from? Yeah, okay. Nice to have the light, but it sort of looks like a straight line across my screen. The yawning, Devadatta, is not just about getting more oxygen to the brain. It is not about getting more oxygen to the brain, because there are better ways to get more oxygen. Better ways. What it is a message? It is a message saying two things. Hey human being, you're pushing yourself too much. You're pushing yourself too much. You're burning yourself out. Take a step back. Rest and be the best you. Rest and be the best. That is the message coming whenever we yawn. But what do? We say, no problem. I'm going to work another 2 hours because I have a deadline. Stop having deadlines. Develop lifelines. Deadline is a single straight line when you are dead, and as Meena posted yesterday, then everybody loves you because now you are dead. And so you cannot, come back and scream at them or, sneeze or fart or stink. And so because of that, now they can all love you because you are dead. And once you are dead, everybody loves you. It is saying here, don't go into that state. Don't push yourself. Don't be dead by going for deadlines. Be alive and have lifelines. Develop that lifeline that say, okay, fine, I am going to rest. Take a short nap, 15-20 minutes. Come back to your best and go ahead. That is the message. Devadatta. The embodiment of the message is coming through that yawning. Well, as a joke, I often say that yawning protects students from teachers who never stop. It is very funny because, the teacher will be going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and the students are, when are you going to stop? And then they start yawning. And all the students in the class yawn, and the teacher gets the message and stops the class. So, yawning, Devadatta, is a protective mechanism for students against teachers who don't get the message that they should stop the class. So, whenever you are in one of those states, start yawning. Please don't do it in my classes, okay? I will yawn with you then. We'll all have a good rest. So, Naga Kurma Krikala Devadatta. Then comes Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya. The translation of Dhananjaya, Dhanam is wealth. Jaya is victory. So they often translated it as one who obtains wealth through victory. That is a common translation. And one of the names of Arjuna is Dhananjaya. And you often hear Lord Krishna calling out Arjuna, different names, Partha, Mahabahu. You find all these words, Arjuna. But he uses the word Dhananjaya often. And this word Dhananjaya for Arjuna, and I'll come to that in a few moments. What do you mean by victory? Because the common translation is Dhananjaya means one who is victorious and through that victory gets wealth. But let's take another look. someone who is victorious over wealth, someone for whom they have gone beyond wealth. They are not stuck in wealth. They are not stuck in the material wealth. They have gone into the transcendental state. They have been able to outgrow the desire for wealth and more wealth. Because if you look at Maharishi Patanjali, he uses words like Indriya Jaya. Indriya Jaya doesn't mean you go and become victorious and now your senses are good. You are victorious over the Indriyas. You have gone to a state beyond the Indriyas. Similarly, Pradhana Jayascha. He uses the word Pradhana Jayascha. You have obtained victory over the highest manifestation, and that is where you are now close to Kaivalya. When you have gone Pradhana Jayascha, the Pradhana, the most primordial energy, you have gone beyond that. You are victorious above it. So Dhananjaya has to not be a slave to wealth, but be a master to wealth. Which means you have understood what is wealth, and now you are looking at it from above, and you start to distribute it as it is meant to be distributed. You become a benevolent giver when you are Dhananjaya. Now here the word Dhananjaya in the Pranavayu is used for an energy that is an energy that sustains multidimensional aspects of life and is the last of the pranas to leave the body. When we die, the pranas leave the body, and even after death, for a certain period of time, some authorities claim it is a few hours, some say it is a few days, and I'll give you explanation for both. One of these energies stays on even after the life force has left the body. The person is dead. Everybody is coming there and, crying and putting malas and incense and paying their condolences. The body is dead, but one pranavayu, one Upa Para Prana Vayus is still there, that is Dhananjaya. Now, many people say Dhananjaya is also a metabolic energy that is related to the adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is our protector when we are in starvation mode. So you could starve for many days and still have enough energy because of adipose tissue breaking down. So this is one way that people look at it. But I prefer this more expanded one. When we leave the body, for a few hours, your organs retain the vitality of life. You have died, but your organs can be harvested and they can be taken and transplanted in another person, and they can continue to live in that person. This is the basis of organ transplant, and we have that golden window in which we try to get the organ from the person who is dead and take it to the person who is in need of it, and who is then given a second lease of life. So remember, Dhananjaya has the capacity to go beyond wealth and become a benevolent giver. The Dhananjaya that is continuing in your body enables you to be a organ donor even after you have died. A benevolent giver, even after you have died, you are giving and supporting somebody else. Some people, their organs may be used in up to 3 to 4 donors. 3 to 4 people can get a second lease of life because of one person and the Dhananjaya that is functioning in them. So if the Dhananjaya is functioning well in an individual and it's sustained, that will then enable a restart of that in the other person's body and give them that second lease of life. Dhananjaya. What a beautiful energy. Now there is a period after which you cannot do it. Somebody has been dead for 2 days. And you say, okay, can we use the kidneys? Well, the doctors will say no. There are windows of a couple of hours depending on the type of organ. And I'm always pleased to see some very astonishing stories where people cover 300, 400 kilometers in a few hours, driving with the organs from one city to another in order for the organ transplantation to occur. Often from Trichy to Chennai, we find these stories. And I really admire the human beings who get involved in this, and they are truly racing against time. Now this Dhananjaya energy starts to diminish because now you are not alive, you are not breathing, so it is not going to be sustaining. So it is like your battery. You have charged the battery. As long as you are charging it, it keeps on backing you up. But then once you stop charging it, it's going to function for some time, and then slowly that battery will wear out. Similarly, the Dhananjaya energy also, which was there, it was like your UPS, it was like your battery, it starts to wane. And where does it finally stop? Where does the battery go totally dead? Well, the concept is around the 10th day after death. 10th day after death is the concept here. The concept is 10 days. And this is why in Indian tradition, the person when they die, up to the 10th day, there is the grieving, there is the mourning, and there is all the stuff. But then, after the 10th day, Dasa Kriya. Dasha, remember I talked of Dasha, 10? Dasha Kriya. The 10 days of rituals that are the mourning part. You mourn the fact that the person has left and you grieve and all that. On the 11th day, you start to celebrate. So 11, 12, 13 are celebrations of the person's life, and that now they have merged into the cosmos. That individual energy which was still remaining for 10 days. What was that energy remaining still? The Dhananjaya Upa Para Prana Vayus. They had died 10 days ago, but we don't consider they have already merged. Because that Dhananjaya had to totally be exhausted, and it takes 10 days. And then on the 11th day, they start the purificatory rituals. And after that, there is the community sharing of food, and it is considered that that individual who had been a separate preta, a separate entity, now merges into the collective of the lineage. And after that, when you do your Shraddham, interestingly today is Amavasya, we are right in Amavasya, the new moon, and the Tithi is tomorrow morning because the sunrise is considered. And this is why the cremation is done, Amanda. The cremation is done because the body is cremated, but the energy still remains. That is the beauty here. The beauty here is that the body has been burnt, the body has been buried, but the energy still is there. That is the energy aspect of Dhananjaya here. It is trans body. And this is why it is such an interesting topic when we talk about Dhananjaya. So the 10 days of mourning, 11, 12, 13 is then of celebration, and then after that, at different points of time, and then it becomes a yearly observance of the Shraddham that is then taken. Amavasya, they do the Tarpanam for all the ancestors. Now it has been liberated. That which was stuck and you were mourning, but it was stuck. Now it has been liberated. It has become one of the collective. And when it becomes part of the collective, well, it's a moment of celebration. And from then on, things move. So it may be, cleaning the house, washing, purification with the holy water, certain rituals are done. The way the dressing is done, the way the beard may be shaved, or all these type of things come into the celebration there. So to come back, Naga, belching, burping, upper GIT protective reflex. Kurma, related to the iris and again you blink to protect yourself so that dust doesn't get into your eyes. You close your eyes. All of that is kurma, protection and autonomic balance. It is related to the kurma nadi that Maharishi Patanjali talks about. He says kurma nadyam stairyam. And this is the Kurma Nadi related to the Kurma Upa Prana Vayu. Many people don't understand that. The Kurma Upa Prana Vayu and the Kurma Nadi is related to this. Naga Kurma, Krikala, sneezing, Devadatta yawning, and Dhananjaya, that which is sustaining life. And I would like to suggest here that all the peripheral reflexes, the knee jerk, the elbow, the, at the wrist and all of this, that all of these peripheral reflexes are governed by the Dhananjaya. Because it is like every place. It's not limited to one part of you. It's every place. It's like the Dhyana Sarva Shariragaha. Like the Dhyana Sarva Shariragaha. Here you have the Dhananjaya, which is enabling all the protective reflexes. For example, you step on a thorn, you withdraw your leg. You touch something hot, you withdraw your finger. All of these are protective reflexes. I would like to suggest that the Dhananjaya is actually what is working through this. That the Dhananjaya Upa Prana Vayu is protecting us through these reflexes. Because it is all pervasive. Like the Vyana is all pervasive. This is why some people say the Vyana is the last to leave the body. I've heard that story also. And maybe it is because they're looking at it in that way. The Dhananjaya is all pervasive. And this is where you become a giver. Because the Dhananjaya is where that giving occurs. Some people like to say maybe it is, as I said, the adipose tissue. Some people say cholesterol also. Good cholesterol, hopefully. The HDL, good cholesterol, which is the Karma Yogi cholesterol. It's doing its job. Plus it's doing other people's job. LDL, VLDL are low-minded and very low-minded cholesterol. They are the unyogic, non-yogic cholesterol. When they drop everything in the blood and create hypercholesteremia and atherosclerosis, HDL, high-density lipoprotein, is the Karma Yogi cholesterol who not only does the job, but takes all the stuff that has been left behind and does the job properly. And this is why having more HDL is good. A level of 40 plus is good if you can get that HDL to that. And most yoga studies have shown the high-density lipoprotein, HDL, good cholesterol goes up, bad cholesterol goes down. So it's not just all cholesterol going down with yoga practice, but the good cholesterol goes up, bad cholesterol comes down. What a beautiful aspect. So Dhananjaya is often related to that also. We have had 10. Now 2. Dasa is where people stop. But this doesn't explain your functioning as a Manushya. Manushya is a human being who has manas. So mind is not coming into any of these. If you please look at them in detail, the Pancha Prana are functions of physiological nature. You have the 5 Upa, which are functioning as protective nature, reflexes. But what is it? Energy. What is the energy? What is the prana? That is enabling you to have thoughts, mentation. How can you mentate? How can that mentation occur? Because this is one of the highlights of being human being. You breathe, I breathe, dogs breathe. You go to the toilet, I go to the toilet, lion goes to the toilet. You sneeze, I sneeze. Well, animals also sneeze. Then what's the difference? To be human is to have the capacity to mentate. And the capacity to mentate then takes you to the capacity to meditate. Mentation, the cognitive process of thought, is an iconic representation of being human. And this is why Swamiji gives us 2 more pranavayus. So instead of having 10, you end up with 12. Dvadasha pranas or Dvadasha pranavayu. He gives the concept of 12. And the 2 that are not found in other teachings are called the Para Prana Vayu. Para means that which is higher. Para Prana Vayu. These Para Prana Vayus are the energies that enable us to think. They enable us to think. And to think is to be human. And to be human is the capacity to think. Well, Descartes used to say, I think, therefore I am. The Indian approach is, I am, therefore I think. So there's a clash of views there. Perspectives are different. The Para Prana Vayus are the pranas that enable us to actually manifest the process of thought. And there are two. Akasha Prana Vayu and Chitra Prana Vayu. Akasha means ether, space, the sky. And I like the word ether. Because what is ether? Thin air. Ether is thin air. As you go up, the Vayu becomes less, and now it becomes Akash. It starts to become space, it starts to become ether. So you're going from air to thin air. That is why the growth is from solid to liquid to thermal, then gaseous and ethereal. That is the growth of the Panchamahabhuta. So thin air, ether. So when we pluck a thought out of thin air, you don't know where the thought came from. It just comes. There is that thought that just comes, wow. And even you are like, wow, where did that come from? It happens when we are singing, and the other day I heard a very famous singer, T.M. Krishna, singing. And it was interesting. He was singing and suddenly he goes, ah. And I know that what that feeling is. You are singing and suddenly a phrase comes through you and you're like, wow, where did that come from? It just comes from someplace. You have a beautiful thought, you're like, where did that come from? That is the Akasha Pranavayu working. Now, most of the time, what happens is we do different things, and because of doing different things, certain parts of the brain start to get connected. Certain chemicals start to get secreted. So the neuronal and neurochemical alterations in the brain then create a thought. And modern scientists have limited themselves to this part. So for them, all thought is a result of neurochemical changes in the brain. This is where what is happening here is that a physical process is getting upgraded. A physical, physiological process is getting upgraded into a mental thought. So go back to the Panchakosha model. An Annamaya, Pranamaya process, nervous system, neurochemical functioning is creating a thought. So there is an upgradation from Annamaya, Pranamaya into the Manomaya, and suddenly you have a thought. Why do you have the thought? As a result of a neurochemical change in your brain. And neurophysiologists are totally caught up with this. This is called Chitra Pranavayu. Chitra means a drawing, a painting. So it is like what you are doing is that you are creating a painting through this process. So it is called Chitra Pranavayu. You know, what is a painting? It is colors put onto a canvas. All of this is Annamaya. Color is Annamaya. It's a thing. Annamaya. Canvas is Annamaya. Brush is Annamaya. And it is being put. So there's a function. It is physiological. Pranamaya. So the colors are being mixed with the brush. They are being put onto the canvas, and after some time, suddenly presto, what has happened is there is a painting. Radu Falcon's mother, Doina, is a beautiful painter. Amazing painting she makes. Chitra Kala, we call it. Chitra Kala is the art of art, painting. What is painting? You are putting all these colors together. You are putting all the bits together, and suddenly at one point, the final image manifests. So all the neurochemical, neurological changes that are occurring in your nervous system and brain are occurring, and suddenly, presto, there's a thought. How does that occur? There is an upgrade. That upgrading energy is the energy of Chitra Prana Vayu. And this is where very, very beautiful concepts, and Brahmanand Gaitonde is bringing that up very nicely. The Chitra Gupta, I have talked about Chitra Gupta earlier on Chitra Paurnami, where we celebrate it. Related to the moon. What is the moon related to? Moon is related to the mind. Chandrama Manaso Jataha, says the Purusha Suktam. The mind is related to the moon. Chitra Gupta. The one who is born of that consciousness and enables that consciousness and keeps all the records of the dharmic rai of the universe, because he has such consciousness. Chitra. Whereas the Akash, yes, Akashvani. Very beautiful examples you have given, Brahmanand Gaitonde. The Akash is downloading. So I say in modern terms, you are uploading files from your computer. It is the Chitra Prana Vayu. You are downloading files from the internet. That downloading the files to your computer, what is it? It is the Akasha Prana Vayu. From the internet, Ethernet. From the internet, you download to your computer Akasha Prana Vayu. From your different drives, you put it up to the computer. Or another way is from your you're uploading. Uploading is Chitra Prana Vayu. Downloading is Akasha Prana Vayu. So what are you downloading? Anandamaya Kosha, which is the cosmic connection. Your membrane connecting to the cosmos. Anandamaya Kosha. From Anandamaya, Vijnanamaya, where the higher thought process is there. And then Anandamaya, Vijnanamaya being brought, a thought is coming from Anandamaya, Vijnanamaya into the Manomaya Kosha. How is that happening? How is that condensation occurring here? How is Anandamaya, Vijnanamaya processes becoming Manomaya? Akasha Pranavayu. How is Annamaya, Pranamaya processes becoming Manomaya? Through the Chitra Pranavayu. And this is why Swamiji's teachings of the Para Prana Vayu are so amazing, because they enable us to understand how the process of mentation, the thought process, is being governed by the prana energy that is flowing through us. And this is why putting them together, the pranadi, the nagadi, and then the chitra and akasha, you have the dvadasha pranavayu. Prana, apana, samana, udana, vyana, naga, kurma, krikala, devadatta, dhananjaya, and akasha, chitra. These 12 become the dvadasha prana or the dvadasha pranavayu, enabling us to physiological function, enabling our protective mechanisms, and enabling the process of mentation that truly enables us to be human. You need to stay alive, you need to function, but then you need to think also. And all of this is coming together by the dvadasha pranavayus. These are teachings that Swamiji has given us, teachings that are life enriching and truly mind-blowing. As you say, ICYER, they are mind-blowing. And the more I grow, the more I learn, the more I realize what an amazing body of teaching Swamiji has given us. Something which is lifetimes of sadhana, lifetimes of work to come. And as Shrikant made a calculation the other day, it's a couple hundreds of thousands of lifetimes to get through it. Swamiji used to say that it would take us 7 lifetimes to get through the teachings he gave us, while we studied with him. So he said you need 7 lifetimes to get through these teachings. Recently, Shrikant, who teaches maths, has created a calculation which is hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. Doesn't matter. We have to start someplace. We have started here. So because we have started here, let's keep doing our best. Because all the divine asks for, all the divine the universe wants is for us to do our best. Do your best, leave the rest. That is the message. Om Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu sarve janaha sukhino bhavantu. Om Shantihi 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 Om. Thank you so much for being with me, and see you later today, where we will be having our 100th day of the Vishwa Yoga Prarthana, another beautiful effort to keep us all together, to strengthen all of us in that spirit of oneness. Nandri Vanakkam.